Hi boys, this video is for those of you who are carrying on Latin next year. First, I'm just going to remind you where the new textbook is because we've finished book 1 now, and obviously you guys don't have hold of book 2, but you're able to access it online. So go to the normal Cambridge Latin course website where you'd normally go to do the online activities for book 1 and click at the top where it says online textbooks. Then just go down to book 2 webbook and it should look like this. So book 1 was set in Pompeii. Book 2 is set in Britain, but it's Britain ruled by the Romans. So we're going to see what Britain was like back in the time when the Romans ruled it. Now, as we know, Caecilius has just died, Metella has died, but Caecilius seemed unsure about where Quintus was. So perhaps we're going to find out in this book. So we're going to meet a new bit of grammar today. I thought we'd just dive right in. So if you can go to the online textbook first, get that up, and also get your exercise book in front of you so that you can write some notes, because you'll need to remember this stuff. Okay, so if we open up the textbook, so just click on next page, we're met with a whole bunch of new characters. So at the top left, we have this man called Gaius Salvius Liberalis and his wife Rufilla, and then all the other people on these pages are slaves. So we've got Varica, Philos, Volubilis, Bregans, and then on the next page we have 2 more slaves, Loquax and Anti-Loquax. So the first chapter is all about slavery in Roman Britain. So before we have a look at those sentences, there's a new piece of grammar going on in there. So we're going to have a look at what that grammar is. So turn to page 10. This is where it introduces the grammar. Have a look at page 10. Feel free to pause this video and just have a little bit of a read, see what's going on here, see if you can make sense of it. I'm also going to go through an explanation now, and you need to make sure that you're taking notes. So the new grammar is called the infinitive. So write that title in your book. As well as the infinitive, we're going to meet 3 new verbs that often are paired up with the infinitive. So there's a lot of information to take in here. So just bear with and try and get everything down and make sure you're pausing every time you need to check that you understand what's going on. So the infinitive means to do something, and the RE here is what it looks like in Latin. So if a word ends in RE in Latin, you translate it as to do that thing. For example, amare means to love, portare means to carry, and correre means to run. So you'll see with all those words, they have this pattern. If they've got re on the end, they're translated as to do that thing. Now obviously, those words will not make sense just by themselves. You're never going to say the boys to love the girls, the slaves to carry the jars. You're going to need other words in there so that it makes sense. So here are the 3 new verbs that we're meeting today. Volo, which means I want. Nolo, which is just a negative version of volo, and it means I don't want. And possum, which means I am able. Here's some examples of how those kinds of words are paired up. So the first one, amare, you see you've got the infinitive there. Possum, so that means I am able to love. Portare, wallow, I want to carry. And correre, nolo, I don't want to run. So you can see all the way through, you've got to do something. Notice how the verbs, possum, volo and nolo, are still at the end of each phrase, just like any verb we'd expect to see it at the end of a sentence. Okay. So, these are the 3 verbs that are new to us. So volo, nolo and possum. In the Firefly task, I've attached this table. So hopefully you've got a printer and you can print it off and cut it and stick it into your book. If you don't have a printer, unfortunately, you're going to have to copy it out. So just like previously with other verbs, we learnt that o, s, t, mus, tis, unt are the endings. for I, you, he, she, it, and then we, you, and they are the plurals. I want, I don't want, and I am able, although they're unusual, still follow this pattern, except there's something strange going on with possum. Okay, so have a look at volo and nolo. Now you'll notice that this table and the table that you've been sent in the Word document have gaps in them. Your job first is to figure out how we're going to fill those gaps. So we've got volo, vis, vult, and then we've got a blank. Now we've got to think, how might you say in Latin, we want? It says at the top, these verbs follow patterns. Let those help you. Okay, so maybe if we look at the verb I don't want, the we form of that is nolumos. So the we form of want is going to be volumos. That's how that will be filled in. Have a think about the they form of volo. How might you say they want in Latin? Well, they don't want is nolunt. So yeah, you might have guessed it. They want is volunt. So the whole form of the verb I want is volo, vis, vult, volumos, vultis, volunt. It's a very strange verb because sometimes there's an O after the V, sometimes there's a U, and once there's an I. But notice how there's still OST, mustis, unt, which is helpful. Have a go at the column for I don't want. How are we going to fill in those gaps? Nolo, blank, non-vult, nolumos, blank, nolunt. Well, this one's a bit of a weird verb because sometimes it's just the verb volo with a non in front of it. So look at the he, she, it form. Instead of vult, we've just got non-vult. Okay, but with some of the others, that doesn't happen. Those two words almost get squished together. So instead of non-volo, we have nolo. It's like a mashup of the two. Instead of non-volumos, we have nolumos. Instead of non-volunt, we have nolunt. So the U form, you might think, well, maybe it's something weird like nis, but it's not. It's very simple. This one is just non-vis. So it's you want, just with the word not in front of it. And the U plural, same issue, non-vultis instead of vultis. Okay, have a look at possum. Possum doesn't end in an O. What does it end in? You've got the word sum there on the end. So what pattern might possum follow? Well, it's just the verb to be with pos or pot in front of it. So this verb goes possum, potes, potest, possumus, potestis, possunt. If you got rid of the pos or the pot in front of each of those words, you'd be left with sum, es, est, summus, estis, sunt. So it's the verb I am with a pot or a pos in front of it. If you think about this in English, it makes sense because I am able has the words I am inside it. You are able. He is able. So it makes sense in Latin that we also have the word for I am, you are, he is within that verb. Okay, so by now we should have made some notes on what the infinitive looks like, and we should have filled in that table of volo, nolo, and possum. So going back to page 10, we're on stage 13 of the textbook. You can see in point 1 there, it shows you a few examples. Have a little look at those. Loquax cantare vult, loquax wants to sing, servi dominum videre nolunt, the slaves do not want to see the master. So you can see there how those sentences are formed. Have a little look at those. And then part 2, you're given a little exercise. Okay, so let's have a go at exercise 2 together. What I would like you to do is under the notes that you've made and under the table that you've put in of volo, nolo and possum, I want you to copy out these 4 Latin exercises, and in each one I want you to underline the infinitive, and then obviously I want you to translate each one. So you can follow along with me, or if you fancy a challenge, pause the video, have a go yourself, and then press play to reveal the answer. make sure you're writing out the Latin for each one. So, A, antiloquax currit, antiloquax currere potest. So our answer here is going to be, firstly, very simply, antiloquax runs. Second sentence, antiloquax potest is able currere to run. Okay, and you should have underlined currere, that's your infinitive. It's a very strange name, antiloquax. It means not talkative, because this particular slave is good at running and is good at dancing. His brother, loquax, which means talkative, is the guy who's good at chatting and he's good at singing. Anyway, part B, Bregans laborat. So Bregans works or is working. Okay, Bregans laborare non vult. So here is your infinitive, laborare. So our answer is Bregans non vult, does not want to work. Bregans is a bit of a lazy slave. C, Gemini fabulam audire volunt. You might have had to look up the word Gemini to check what that means. If you think of the star sign Gemini, it's the same idea. The infinitive, audire, is here. So Gemini means the twins. Volunt, want, audire, to hear, fabulam, a story. Okay, and then D, senes festinare non possunt. The old men, remember es on the end tells us it's plural, and the other thing that tells us it's plural is the possunt. We know sunt is they, it's plural as an ending. The infinitive, by the way, is here, festinare. So the old men non possunt are not able to hurry. Okay, so there we go. We've had a look at page 10. We've had a look at points 1, 2, and 3 because we filled in that table. And just let's have a sneaky look at point 4 before I stop the video. So it mentions here how possum, potes, potest, etc., as well as translating them as I am able, you can also translate them as I can, you can, etc. Just be careful with that because then you'll find that you're not translating the infinitives as infinitives. So if you look at these examples up here, that first one you can translate as we are not able to sleep, but you can also translate it as we cannot sleep. You then don't translate dormire as to sleep simply because it just won't make sense. You can't say we cannot to sleep. Okay, but it's the same idea. So we are not able, we cannot, both of those work absolutely fine. Okay, boys, so lots of information there. Make sure you're checking that you've understood everything and that you've got all those notes and that exercise down. Well done.